Greetings, everybody, and welcome to a dissertation chapters 1 through 3. This is going to be a quick and intensive look at the chapters 1 through 3. My name is Greg Price. I'm the Associate Dean in the School of Applied Leadership. What we will be doing in this video is we're going to be talking about expectations. Expectations of the student and how you relate to the chapters, what's important about them. We're also going to talk about the transition from classwork to dissertation writing. We'll get into chapters 1, the introduction, a little bit of discussion about that, move into chapter 2, the literature review, and then we will move into chapter 3, the methodology. Finally, we'll end with transitions and the importance of writing transitions within the chapters. Before we begin our discussion, I would like to just do a brief review of the dissertation process and the hope or the areas of the dissertation sequence where you're going to be writing your chapters 1 through 3. Now, if you look at the different, the sequence, which is really RESR courses 694A through F, the prospectus is you're going to get done in 694A, and then once you get that approved, you're going to go into 694B, and this is where you're going to be starting the writing of your proposal. The proposal is the chapters 1 through 3. So first, let's talk a little bit about student responsibilities, and the several bullet points that we have on the screen is a lot of words. I'm not going to go ahead and read it through to you, but I really encourage you to read through each of the bullet points here. I will briefly discuss a few that are important. The first bullet point is probably your most important, and that is where you talk with your chair. The chair is going to be not necessarily your instructor, but your chair is going to be your coach during this sequence. And you are going to be the driver of everything that occurs during the dissertation. What does occur between the chair, the committee members, and the dissertation director is they're going to be providing you feedback. And the feedback is to help you to become that scholar that you are looking to earn through your doctorate degree. So be open to the feedback. Again, this weekly arrangement where you're going to be talking with your chair is of utmost importance. And the red bullet point here is something that is extremely important, and so keep this in mind. There's 7 years to finish your dissertation. And that includes your coursework all the way through to the end where you defend. So all in all, don't be afraid to ask questions as we go forward. Things that you may not understand, even not even sure what questions to ask. It's just good to have conversations, because this is really how you start to learn to become that scholar, and you become educated in the ways of becoming that individual. So a little bit about expectations. The student will be in communication with the chair on a regular basis. Now, this is where the student is the driver of the communication, not the other way around, not the chair to the student. So keep that in mind. The feedback that you're going to be receiving will be from the dissertation director, the committee members, and the chair, so please be sure that you're open to all of that feedback and address all of the feedback that you do get. Now, this is really important as well. When you receive feedback, you're not going to be going through the document and updating everything that is pointed out in the document, but instead the chair, the feedback that you receive may occur once early on in your paper, but the point is that you would correct that same type of error that occurs throughout the paper. So you're looking for those kinds of examples that were pointed out early on in the paper and how they might carry through within all of the 3 chapters that you've got. So a little bit more about what I was just talking about with regard to the expectations of addressing all of the feedback. This is, again, I'm going to state it again. The chairs, the feedback that you receive in the paper, it's not going to be where you receive feedback on every single point, even if there are multiple times that the point was made or the error was made and the feedback was given. It may be the case where the feedback is given once, but the error occurs many, many times throughout the paper. So this is where you would address all of the different episodes of that particular feedback element. So another thing to keep in mind and that is extremely important, is to really know and be comfortable using APA. If there are areas that you're not quite sure about, ask. Look in the book. Be very familiar with where you find things within the APA edition. So as we transition out of coursework and we move into our dissertation sequence, it's really quite a change, a mental shift, if you will. The coursework is where you are, taking planned activities, you are learning in a planned sort of avenue. The papers that you wrote were guided, they guided your learning, and the instructor was a very important aspect of the teacher along the way. As you move into the dissertation phase, you are ready to move your project forward yourself. The chair is not considered your teacher, but instead your coach. So you would be reaching out to your chair, your coach, and be asking questions or ask for help of areas that may be a bottleneck that you might see, or those kinds of things. And this is where the weekly communication comes in handy. Tell the coach where you're at, what you're doing, what's happening with your research or with your writing, what's happening along the way. And as your coach listens to you, the coach will identify potential areas of bottlenecks for you. They'll be able to understand what you're doing, where you're at, and the process along the way. So be sure to communicate this. The timelines that you set up in each of the course sequences is up to you and the chair, but be sure that you complete those, otherwise you probably will be taking that course again. It's a pass-fail sort of an arrangement, so be sure that you pass each of them. So some important aspects, and this will lead right into what I was just talking about. You set goals. And in each of the dissertation courses within that sequence, the students work with the chair to set these goals. Make these goals attainable, make them reachable, and what you'll do is you'll try very hard to complete those set of goals that you set out to accomplish within each of those courses or sequence of courses. And the prospectus, so to give you an idea, the prospectus is really to be finished in Research 694A. If you don't happen to finish it, you'll take A over in the sense that it will be RESR 99. It'll be kind of like you're taking it over, but it won't be A. It won't be called A anymore. It'll be called 99. So that would be the goal, finish the prospectus. Now when you get into 694B, this is where you're going to start writing your proposal, chapters 1, 2, and 3. And so be sure that you're setting up your goals with your chair and that you're keeping to those goals. Okay, now that we're writing our chapter 1, we want to be sure that we are writing in clear, simple, correct language, and that our writing is aligned with our prospectus, and it's aligned throughout. Now, the prospectus was approved by everybody, so you should have strong alignment. As you write chapter 1, you're really, what chapter 1 is kind of like a roadmap. It's like your prospectus, but it's fleshed out a little bit more. So you can't just copy and paste over. You're actually writing it in a very sequential sort of manner. Where transitions occur in your writing, your headings look like headings of a normal paper, subheadings, and these things will help you to make your Chapter 1 a very readable Chapter 1. So definitely rework, adjust, make it flow from the prospectus into Chapter 1. Another aspect of writing Chapter 1 is to use future tense. And future tense is where you're going to be saying you're going to be doing this, you will be conducting this, kind of a present future tense sort of language. You'll also be introducing your authors and incorporating context so that you introduce the authors in such a way so that the reader knows why the author is important within your study. This is a very important point, and what occurs by introducing your author to make your point about what it is that you're writing about in that particular section of your paper, it really limits the use of author strings. Author strings are where you set authors up in a very lengthy sort of manner where you have many different authors from different journals as a string. The context actually kind of removes the strings, and the strings make it hard to read through the document. But if you bring in context to support why the author is important in your study, it becomes a much more readable document, and it will make your chapter writing much better. So continuing on with Chapter 1, the introduction, these are the sections of Chapter 1, the abstract, introduction, study background foundation, the problem statement, the purpose of the study, all of these things all the way down to summary. Now, it doesn't mean that these are the only things that you're going to be including. There may be other specific subject points that you're going to be putting in there as well. It all depends on what your dissertation is about, but these are primarily the ones that you'll be including. Okay, let's look at Chapter 2, and Chapter 2 is the literature review. And because the literature review is written about the literature that you have researched and read, and they're written by authors that were written in the past, you would use past tense. Now, this is not always the case, but in generally about 95% of the case within Chapter 2, you're going to be writing in past tense, and always when you're referring to authors that you bring into the literature. And to continue this idea of context, because you're going to bring in so many different authors in the literature review, adding context is going to be extremely important. This is giving the reason for why you're bringing the author into the paper itself, and again, it reduces the amount of author strings, and it also helps to the reader to understand the logic of why you're bringing a specific author in for a point that you're making. Once you've finished Chapter 2, and also this has to do with Chapter 1, but once you finish a chapter, make sure that what you do is you go back into the dissertation handbook and you check off all the elements that need to be checked off to make sure that you've included everything that needs to be included prior to submitting it to your chair. So to continue with the Chapter 2, the literature review, these are the sections of Chapter 2, the introduction, the body of the literature review, and the summary. Now, it doesn't mean that you only have three basic, primary sections within the literature review, but the body of the literature review is going to become, expanded considerably. And you'll be working with your chair to really understand how to put together a strong flow, a strong storytelling arrangement. Your use of headings and subheadings is going to be critically important so that your story does flow in the right manner. Okay, so let's start looking at Chapter 3, Chapter 3 being the methodology chapter. And here again, just like Chapter 1, you're going to be using the future tense. So Again, you're going to be introducing some new authors into this chapter, so be sure that you provide the context as to why you're utilizing and introducing these specific authors within this chapter and how they add to your dissertation. Again, it will limit the use of author strings, and once you finish chapter 3, you're going to do the same thing. Go to the handbook, make sure that everything is included in the methodology by going through the checklist, and you'll find that checklist in the student handbook. Continuing on with Chapter 3, Methodology, these are the sections that you will be including in Chapter 3. They are not all the sections. I'm sure that there will probably be some other ones that you'll be including as well, but these are kind of like the standard ideas that you'll be including in it. Now, it all depends on your focus of study and how you're putting it together. Your chair will work with you to make sure that you've included all the sections necessary for that to make a completed chapter. Now, once you have completed all 3 chapters, 1, 2, and 3, this is considered your proposal. And Chapter 1 being the introduction, Chapter 2 being the literature review, and Chapter 3 being the methodology. This is going to be the a significant amount of work, and it's also going to set the stage for you to continue on with Chapters 4 and 5. But we need to get approval. So you send it to your chair. The chair will send it to committee and back to the chair, and then it will go to the dissertation director and back to the chair. And each iteration, there's going to be some iterations of your work. So be sure that you manage through the iterations. You make sure that there's enough time in your cycles for managing all of those iterations. And once you have approval, the problem statement and the research questions, they are set. Those are the ones you're going to be working with. You cannot change them without going through the process again. So as a recap for what we've learned, I'm just going to point out a few of the most basic and most important ones. So chapters 1 and 3 are written in future tense. Chapter 2 is written in past tense with those few exceptions. Now, be sure that your writing is clear, succinct, it's precise, it is logically presented, it tells a story along the way. You're going to find that between chapters there's going to be some repetition as well. And this is because when individuals read your research, they're just going to be reading like chapter 1, for example, or they're going to go directly into chapter 3. And so they want they want to be able to understand the point of the research, even at the beginning of chapter 3. And then it leads into the methodology. So you're going to find that there is going to be some repetition. Be sure that this is accounted for and written in such a way. Now, within each of the chapters, you're going to have bridges and you're going to have transitions as well. You're going to be utilizing your subheads, your headings. They're going to be your friend, and they're going to help you to tell the story in a very succinct, logical way. That pretty much concludes the video that I have made for you on this dissertation intensive with regard to the proposal chapters 1, 2, and 3. If you have any questions about this video, please talk to your chair so that they can help you to understand their perspective of the different things that are going on within your specific dissertation. Thank you very much. You have a great day.